of the best achievements that I can ever think of making.
So my next life lesson that you taught me is, you can show up, but if you don't do the work, it won't matter. Why is education so important to you?
Education is important because it allows you to know what you don't know. And it actually guides you to try to improve yourself continually. Continuous education, continual improvement is important, because one of the things that is happening right now is that, you know, people try to pull people into doing things. You can't do that. You have to actually work with people and communicate with people. One of the things that we see today is the social media. A lot of people are dedicated to hearing things, reading things, but they don't interact. When you're in education, you go in a classroom, you interact with other people, you exchange ideas. And the exchange of ideas is great because it actually helps you to formulate and visualize something different by bringing all those experiences together. And you can only get that through education. You can't get it on your own. But education helps you to be open and broaden your perspective on life.
All right, so like I said, we're going to go through this in a timeline of your life. So you're going through childhood, you've gotten married, you're also in the military, you have children. You spoke briefly about how hectic your life is. At this moment, you're married. Like I said, you're in the Navy, you have kids. How's your day-to-day life right now? And what does it look like with your workload and all that stuff?
It is pretty complicated, again, because of the 8 hours of work. Then you have to, you know, come home, be with your kids for a little bit, and then go for 3 or 4 hours of school, plus the work that comes afterward. You got to do homework, you got to do reading, you got to do things that are not normal to a regular routine. And so that puts a lot of pressure, stress. It's a very stressful situation. For me, it was a very stressful time.
So, you said it was very stressful. What is your motivation, desire? What keeps on pushing you to keep on going forward, even though that you're stressed out and everything just seems too much, essentially?
Well, what keeps me, first of all, is because, I learned to keep a goal. My goal was to reach the education levels that I wanted to, but also to seek a better life for my family. You know, not just the education. The education was a vehicle to get to where I wanted to go and be successful in life and bring that success to my family. So that was what kept me going, even through the stressful time.
As we continue through your timeline, my next life lesson that you taught me is, life is going to keep happening. The tough get tougher. Divorce. You're finding out you're getting divorced. Why? Well,
As I mentioned, it was stressful going to school and working at the same time. But one of the main things that I had noticed as we were going through that evolution, my wife and I, is that we were drifting apart, both going different directions. Obviously, the education goal was not there for my first wife. And so after a while, we just basically, two people drifting in two different boats going apart. And so we decided to, as hard as it was for the family, because I mentioned I wanted to keep the family intact as much as I can. I went on and decided that I can move on to something else and be successful, and my wife could move on to something else and be successful.
What was it like going through this experience? What age are you at this time right now?
I'm actually 26, 27. It was a difficult time. Because I was getting to the culmination of my education, and actually I was in this was happening in December, and actually I just received orders to go to Japan at the end of January, and so one of the things that put pressure on me was that my goal was almost realized, but not really, because I still were missing 7 credits. And so the only alternative for me to do that was to get the winter semester done, do the seminar. But the school prohibited anybody from taking more than 6 credits during the break. In fact, they wanted you to take 3 only, because it's 6 credits. It's very stressful, and so you had to get special permission to do that.
All right. So, what was the relationship with your kids at this moment?
Actually, the kids were great. They were very supportive of me, of what I was doing. They were young and they didn't. But one of the things that I had to do when the decision came to divorce was to communicate with my children what was going on or what was about to happen, because it's important. The children, when something like a divorce happens, they tend to think that it's something that they did. So I wanted them to know that that was the first thing that I communicated, that I didn't have to do anything with them. But again, I explained to them what I was doing, that I was going to take them to New York, where my soon-to-be ex-wife wanted to go to. And so I traveled with them and my wife to New York.
Okay, so I call it the airplane story. I would consider this one of the most lowest moments in your life throughout your timeline. Can you please tell the audience about your story, which I call the airplane story?
Yeah, it was a difficult time for me. But the idea was that I had to drive them from San Diego to New York and then return to San Diego. That was a very difficult time for me, because it was painful to do that and to return to the house by myself. And one of the things that happened was that I was in the house by myself after returning from New York, feeling very distraught, very destroyed. And I didn't know what my future was going to be like. I didn't think I could continue on, and especially because I knew that not only had I failed in my goal to get my bachelor's degree, because I still had the 7 credits left that I needed to take, and I couldn't take them over the winter time. But something extraordinary happened the next day, is that my mentor at the school, his name was Professor Moriarty. He found out about that, and he actually came to me the next day. I don't know why the next day or how it happened, but he came, and he told me that he had heard what had happened, and that he heard that I wasn't going to return to school because I didn't have funding. And so he said, "Don't worry about that. Let's go talk to the dean, and let's make the arrangements for you to finish your bachelor's degree, and I'll pay for the credits. But we still have the battle of getting the dean to approve this." And so when we went to see the dean together, the dean said, "Well, you know, we don't have any courses that allow you to take 7 credits. And so you would have to take more than 3 credits and more than 6. And that's not permitted by the school." So obviously that's a very difficult thing to do. So Moriarty suggested, well, why don't we take the 2 courses that are 6 credits, and let him do a music course that for 1 credit. And so the dean said, it's very difficult, because in one of the courses that you were suggesting, he has to read 15 books, and the other one he has to learn about appreciating music, but he has to do recognizing music by just listening to it and then determining what kind of. It's very difficult. It's because It's a very intense course. And the last one is the music course I was just suggesting. He has to learn an instrument and then perform that instrument with one piece for an audience of people who give him the grade. And he must get a grade of A in order to pass that course. And so he says those are very tall orders. It's hard to do. But in any case, he allowed it. I agreed that I would do it, and I went on to do that. And lo and behold, I did finish the readings, and I did finish the music appreciation course, and I did the presentation to learn to play the guitar and do one particular piece, which was very difficult because I didn't have the skills in there. But I did. I actually had a tremendous professor that showed me how to dominate the guitar and taught me the music at the same time. And so it actually helped me because it actually gave me like a tremendous boost in confidence. I had never experienced that before. Because I finished the course. I'll be honest with you, if you ask me how I did it, I don't know. I just knew that I had so much interest in doing that I dedicated all the energy that I had. And then again, the other thing was that at the end of the 3 weeks, I was handed my diploma. That is amazing. That was sort of, even though it was just a letter saying that I finished my bachelor's degree, it actually gave me the biggest boost that I've ever received in confidence. And so I went to Japan, and I was feeling like I could beat the whole world if I had to. And so I was in a high note when I went to Japan, and Japan was good, but then something else happened at the end.
Do you believe that people come into your life, not just you, but I mean like in general, people's lives, that help them put them in the right direction? Like Mr. Moriarty?
Yes. Not only Mr. Moriarty, in my case, Moriarty was a key person. Because had he not taken the time to do that, I mean, he didn't have to do that as a professor. Yes, he was my mentor. But again, something he saw in me that I didn't see myself. And he was good enough to come back and actually pay for my course. And I'm going to tell you, the courses were very expensive. But the other thing is, even in Japan, as I was in Japan, finishing that tour, my dad actually had a stroke, and he was dying. So at the end of my tour in Japan, my contract in the Navy was coming up to end my tour. And I received orders to Keflavik, Iceland, and I called the person who writes the orders and said, no, I want to go to Puerto Rico. And he told me there are no positions in Puerto Rico. There's only one position open. And so I said, well, my time in the Navy comes to an end at the time of this particular tour. So I'm going to get out of the Navy. And he told me, you're just going to hit 10 and a half years in Navy. How come you're going to go off when you have more than half already completed? I said, I'm going to do it because I want to go and be with my mom and my family when my dad dies so that I can help them through that process. And I returned home after leaving the Navy. And lo and behold, one day I was at home, and here comes this chief by the name of Sanchez. He's the recruiter from San Juan. And he said, I have orders from a Commander Skip Mills and Master Chief Stenner to come get you and take you to the base at Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico, where you're going to be stationed. And all you have to do is resign and come back in the Navy. And again, I was surprised because Skip Mills and Master Chief Stenner were two people that I worked for some years back. But they saw something in me that made them come together and do whatever they need to do to get me to Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico, allowing me to be with my father on his last few days to help my mom and actually continue. But more than that is that as I came back in the Navy, when I left the Navy, I was an E6. And lo and behold, while I was returning, I was selected to be E7, which is a hallmark in the Navy to become a chief. And again, this is another boost in my morale and my confidence, because it showed me that something that I had done actually worked to impress other people to be able to help me. And they were good enough to come back and help me and supported me through that process.
Would you say that, you spoke briefly about how Master Chief Stenner and Skip Mills remembered you. Do you believe that your work ethic was one of those things that stood out from other people?
Yes, I wouldn't call it work ethic. I think that they saw that one of the things that I've always believed in is whatever job you're doing, whether you're picking up trash or you're building a building or whatever you're doing, you do it to the best of your ability. And every job that I did for these two people, I believe that they saw that I worked, and I actually did, in my view, I did those extra things that people don't normally do. I identify, again, because I learned to do the process, I identify the process and identify the things that were just enough to get it there, but I tried to do the little nice things that make it a little bit better for not just the project, but for the people that were involved in that project, to make sure that everybody worked together to accomplish the mission. And I think they saw that, and that's one of the things that actually I think made them move in that way to help me, to get me back in the Navy, and actually, again, allowing me to complete my naval career all the way to Master Chief.
All right, so at this point in your life, you've already been married, you've been divorced, you're in the military, you came out, you came back in, you've already ranked up to Master Chief. We're gonna skip a little bit of your timeline because I'm just gonna say nothing bad happens. So we're in graduate school now. How many years is that actually from the time that you coming back from Japan, and then you find yourself in graduate school in Puerto Rico?
Well, actually, when I went back to Roosevelt Roads after my dad passed, I returned to school under the Navy's Campus for Education program, and actually finished my master's degree while I was in Puerto Rico, at the University of Puerto Rico. So that was another event that actually was a result of returning to the Navy, because the Navy paid for that degree. And so I was able to finish that, and immediately upon finishing that, I was actually sent to a place called the Navy School of Work Study. And I became sort of an analyst that looks at work and identifies how work is done. What are the different details that a person uses in any job, and identify different jobs. And so working there, one of the things that I actually learned from that experience is not only how to analyze work and create better procedures, but the other thing is to work smarter, not harder. And so one of the things that as an analyst I learned is how to identify the different details that make up a process, and then identify the places that there are barriers or ways that can be improved around it. Again, going back to the question that you asked earlier, what made me finish projects or not give up is because of that. It's because of the process that they show me.
All right, so you're at the you're in the University of Puerto Rico. You're out and about, and you find yourself attracted to your future next wife. What is it about her that attracted you in the first place?
Well, it was a funny story, because it was the first day of the graduate school, and we were enrolling into the different courses. And she was there with a group of young ladies. And all of a sudden I noticed that I didn't have a pen or pencil. So I approached the group and asked if she had a pencil. And at first she was very upset. She says, you know, you come to enrollment, you don't have a pen or a pencil to write with. What did you expect to do? So, but in any case, she did give me the pencil. And then, lo and behold, we had the conversation about enrollment, and she was helping me through enrollment because she had been at the school before from a couple of years already. And so she said to me, you know, one of the problems that she had was that we had to get these books on that day for the courses, and she left her money at home, and so she was afraid that the books would go away to other people, and then she wouldn't have a book. And so I said, well, look, the problem is I have a check, but I don't have money, so we are going to have to go to some kind of ATM or something to get money. And we went to the naval base, and I was able to cash a check and come back, and we bought the books for both of us. And so after that, then she said, well, then whenever you get a chance, please come meet my family, and I'll reimburse you for the books. But in that situation, I visited her and continued to visit her until, you know, we hit it off. She was very smart young lady, very sharp, very easy on the eyes, and so we just hit it together. And lo and behold, a year after my dad had passed away, we actually married on the same day. Actually, my dad died. In order to make that day, which was very emotionally disturbing to me, a good day. And so we've been together ever since.